Well, here we are in the back of yet another taxi.
This is Abu and my name is Preach.
It's Abu and Preach, the Wimbledon version.
We're about to go and meet a fine fellow who's going to offer us a wild boar head or two for dinner.
He will proffer us a fine repast.
We're off to meet Alex Woods, or Alex Forrest, a stuffy old man who isn't
a day game aficionado based.
He's a good guy, we both like him. We haven't seen him in a while. We're on his home patch in Warsaw. We've just landed from Helsinki and we're off to record some over-the-top narrative with him, really.
Record some world-class content with him.
Yeah.
Which should be fun.
And then we've got a weekend in Warsaw, so it should be cool.
Yeah, no rest for the wicked. No rest for the wicked.
I'm excited though. I mean, we're basically coming here both fresh, in the sense we haven't really. There's one bird I could see, but there's not much going on. So it's as we always say. But most important thing is just getting your arse in gear and approaching. And we won't be doing that tonight, but we will be up crack of dawn tomorrow and hitting the gym and getting on with things.
Who's dawn?
Exactly. Who isn't?
Yeah, so this is quite a famous establishment, believe it or not.
Really?
Well, I don't know if it's a myth or a story that the raconteur owner of this establishment, Stanislav, feeds the customers, but apparently they used to do Radio Free Europe broadcasts from this cafe in communist times.
Oh,
so
right.
you'll see all the pictures up there. They're all like, basically revolutionaries during the communist times, and obviously things were a little bit, what's the word?
Naughty.
Yeah, a little bit like they are now in a way. A communist dictatorship back in the 80s, and we've now got it in the West in 2020.
Well, it's certainly interesting times that we're living
indeed.
through.
Well, look, I appreciate you dropping by.
Or anything for a free glass of beer.
Well, did you want some vodkas? Because I have.
Oh yes.
I think she's making.
Well, it is,
them,
but
though. It's taking a while.
Yeah, she must be crushing the potatoes herself and distilling herself. It's tradition, isn't it?
Shot.
Every important thing with a shot of vodka.
Yeah.
In some form. Well, how have you been, Alex? It's been a long time.
I have been found this last year pretty challenging.
Yes.
Frankly, and I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about how the world has perhaps changed.
Sure.
And I also wanted to just talk to you a little bit about the kind of the philosophy of women and dating.
Okay.
Indeed.
And that's one of the things that we haven't seen each other since that surreal drunken night in Borough Market 3 years ago.
Well, you took advantage of me in Beedale's wine bar in Borough Market. we went to record a podcast and it was just good vibe, wasn't it? And the red wine was flowing and it was good fun. But we caught up since then, I think.
Can you remember what happened? Or did you...
Did
you wake up the next morning?
Nothing of that matter, though.
It was quite interesting because we did a long, proper podcast.
Yeah.
It felt like a really proper conversation.
But I think it got progressively more sloppy as it. Or
Did it?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember really.
Did you ever put it out though?
Was it for your?
Oh, it's for my channel,
Yeah.
so I put it out.
Oh, nice,
It's
okay.
buried in the bottom of the vault somewhere.
Nice.
But yeah, so I thought that we'd talk about that as well, and then we'd have a little conversation about our personal adventures and personal stories, because
Yeah.
we've probably got a few.
Indeed.
A few
War stories.
A few war stories.
A few success stories and mostly failure, which is what everyone likes anyway.
Yeah, well, quite.
And it's actually reflective of, we talked about this on the plane on the way over, between take your break from doing impressions, for one, but about how actually rejection is part of that.
It's part of the game.
Part of the game.
In fact, in a way, you could say rejection
Is the game.
is the game.
'Cause you're
Rejection
filtering
is your
through, aren't
strategy.
you?
Effectively, you're going out to be rejected in order to find those few that come through
Yeah.
that you can take it further with.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice way of putting it.
Well, it's an integral part of it. So guys that are, the old school pickup method of trying to build yourself up with these ridiculous names. Like there was one guy called 10 Magnet. Imagine him walking into a house party. It's like, oh, hey, how you doing? What's your name, man? And he's like, oh, 10 Magnet. You're like, oh, John, look, he's called 10 Magnet. All right, mate, go and approach that. I mean, there's so much, pressure put on yourself, and that was kind of the old school PUA thing, wasn't it? It's the fake value. Pretend you never got rejected. Pretend you can get any girl. And that was the whole marketing around that as well. But actually, it's a ridiculous way to look at it, because you shouldn't want to get on with every girl. You're not gonna gel with every human being. Just like you're not gonna want to get on with every guy in terms of friendship. You don't have time or inclination, or it's just not a good strategy. Right?
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of duds. You've got to sort the wheat from the chaff, as you say.
Well, to someone completely fresh. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, hopefully, someone who's been through a difficult period of their life as far as women and dating is concerned. It's quite, I think, the question I have is, how do you talk to that person about what it is that you're both coaches, you're dating coaches, you're lifestyle coaches. You help dudes. So far as I know, do you help girls as well yet?
I mean, there's always possibilities with that, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Possibilities. But primarily, you help dudes get some mastery in this area of their life. And I actually want to drill into this from the perspective of, a lawyer representing the establishment. Oh yeah.
Oh, here we go.
We knew we spoke of mirrors in this conversation.
But you've kind of raised, in a way, one of the most interesting. If someone came to me, if I came to myself, that old chestnut, if I was myself 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, and I was given some advice to myself, my 7-year younger self. I think that would be a brilliant bit of advice. Whatever happens, mate, you're gonna meet rejection, and the process under everything else is learning to kind of acknowledge, accept, embrace.
Yeah.
I like the way you phrased it.
Yeah.
That actually you can't progress without it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I'd have.
Lovely way of framing
I
it.
wish that I'd known when I was much younger that rejection was just an integral part of dating and relations with women. Because when I was 18 or 19, which was a few years ago now, a couple of years ago, for me, the idea of being rejected by somebody was just cataclysmic. It was just, if I get rejected by this girl who's cute in my class, then that's the end of the world. I'm gonna, and if I'd have just realised that mindset was just incredibly damaging and limiting, and that actually getting rejected by 100 girls doesn't matter if the 101st, comes through.
Yeah.
And
But also that the 101st will never come into your life unless you've had that.
Exactly. So actually leaning into rejection, I think, is a key thing, really. And
we talked about it, didn't we, on
this.
this recent boot camp. We just ran a boot camp with 16,
training some guys.
Yeah, in Helsinki. 16 guys running around with their proverbial dicks in their hands. No, they did quite well, but we drilled it into them. Like, it doesn't really matter if they went and had 20, 30 conversations a day and it didn't work out, because to have a successful trip, all they really needed to do was meet one cool girl they had a connection with, and they have that kind of honeymoon romance with her. And that's the sign of a successful trip. And if we're in Moscow and we met, which we did, a couple each, 2 or 3 girls we genuinely got on with, which we did, it basically nullifies all the kind of quote-unquote filtering process.
Yeah.
Because it's when you have that Nietzsche-esque why of what you're looking for, you overcome the what, the how. It doesn't matter. So it's important to have that goal in your head, and that allows you to kind of just get over it. It's just not even.
Sorry, the why and the how.
If you have that Nietzsche-esque why, you can
Nietzsche-esque why.
Nietzsche-esque why, you can overcome any what or any how. So if you have that goal to be, you're in Moscow and you want to meet 2 girls that you date and have a kind of connection with, it doesn't matter how many girls or duds you've kind of gone through, how many conversations you've gone through, because that's your ultimate goal. So it's very important, I think, when we teach guys, we say to them, look, success is just according to what was it, the old guy from the 1950s, progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Everyone's definition of success with dating is different. A younger guy might just be wanting to sleep with a girl every night. An older guy might want a wife. But it's important to map out what that goal is and then have that in mind. And then
Why
you
you're learning dating.
why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Not just wandering around with your
Skills
dick in your
in
hand
the
going, I want to get good at this. It doesn't mean anything. You need to know what you want.
Yeah, because and if that desire is strong enough for whatever it may be, whether that is to to date different women and be more casual, or whether you're looking to settle down or any of that kind of thing, whatever, if that desire is strong enough, then that should carry you through the difficult bits.
It
the
does,
difficult bits.
and it does carry you through.
Yeah,
if you really
yeah.
know what you want.
Because if you, and again, it's the old thing that people always talk about, isn't it? If you had a gun held to your head and
What
somebody
do you
said, right,
really want?
but also, right, go out tonight and make something happen, the likelihood is you probably could make something happen because the need would be strong enough.
It's
Because
almost giving yourself that death ground
yeah,
strategy.
yeah, exactly.
Which we lack in life. We had it when we were running around Moscow, and it was like we missed. We had it in the bag for a day before PCR test to get over to. Where were we flying to?
Was it-
Been the last 3 months. We were leaving Moscow to go London.
No, were we going our separate ways at that point? I was going to Berlin.
Oh, I was
Is
going
that
to
right?
Greece. You were
Yeah.
going to Berlin, and basically we missed our slot. So we both had expensive planes, but missing it wasn't an option. And suddenly it's like all that kind of almost kind of jazz and kind of blurriness of lack of clarity from your day that you can get when you're kind of living this nomadic lifestyle goes out the window because you feel alive, you feel in the moment, you feel present. And it's a bit like that kind of.
So we had to basically find a place that did a very quick PCR test, go down there, deal with all of the crazy, not understanding the Russian language, the bureaucracy and everything like that, and get it done.
And that was
because
that was the priority, wasn't
Yeah.
it? And it kind of clarifies your vision. And what we often lack with dating is that. And if you really know what you want, and it's okay to have different goals, and the goals can change, but if you know that unashamedly and you keep that in mind, you can really get to that goal very quickly. But people lack an understanding of what they want, and often they want this player lifestyle, and they don't realise it's actually emotionally very hollow. Most guys, as a default setting, I'd say, are happiest with 2 or 3 women they're dating non-exclusively and who they have an emotional connection with. That tends to be the default category I would suggest guys have if they don't have a kind of a thing in mind. But a lot of them come in and they think they want to live a porn star sex.
Oh, so it's a default why.
That would be the default why if they're really struggling for something. I'd say, look, you're probably going to find yourself quite happy dating, say, 2 girls non-exclusively where you have a connection with her and you've always got a free slot free for maybe some night game on a Friday or whatever, have one night stand.
Yeah.
But it's better if they actually figure out what they want.
So the guys that you have had, I mean, you've been doing a lot of training and coaching past 2 or 3 months, yeah?
yeah,
Moscow was a bit quieter. We had different projects on, and the fact that it was you needed a visa to get in there kept out a lot of people.
But so let's take Helsinki then.
Helsinki was very full on.
Did you talk to these? Did you coach these guys in this Nietzschean super?
well, we did say to
No,
them,
I think it's very good.
yeah, no, we did impress on them that you need to know why you're doing this, and you need to know what you're shooting for, essentially.
Super important.
Because actually, one guy actually said to us, and this is where we started talking about this, because one guy actually on one of the sessions said to us, well, how do I keep my motivation going when I'm not with a coach, when I'm not with you guys? And we said, well, I mean, really, if you want it badly enough, whatever it is, and I think in his case it was maybe to date non-exclusively, if you want it badly enough, it shouldn't matter if we're sitting there or not. It shouldn't matter if there's a coach there or not. After you've got the initial skills together, you've got some practice.
Yeah.
The motivation should be, well, I really want that outcome. I really want to meet that beautiful girl or these beautiful girls.
And settle down and marry.
Well, he was lacking. He was massively lacking sexual intent, and I said to him in the old days, I used to carry around a condom in my pocket, loose from my wallet, to remind myself of what was actually out there. And because he wasn't charging in with any kind of intent. He was a very kind of nice guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are you doing this, Simon? And he was like, we were like, first and foremost, it should be done for kind of sexual purposes rather than for validation. And so that was a big thing for him. He was like, what? Oh shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It's
But-
like I'd never thought of that before, and I was like, it's a no-brainer. That's why I wanted to get into
Yeah.
this. Really, if
Yeah,
being honest.
but look, I mean, obviously it's up to each individual what
No.
they want at the end of the day.
Sure.
And I mean, some people. I mean, there was at least one guy who was on the boot camp who said, you know, I'm just looking to meet somebody nice and to settle down. There were other guys who wanted to have a bit of fun, and that's just down to the individual. But you've got to understand it for yourself.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
This we're riffing around the question of the issue of rejection,
Yeah.
Yes.
which I think, because I feel it. I mean, I've been.
Do you take it personally when you
know,
get rejected?
Yeah. And when you get a bit more experience, you're then dating girls you're genuinely attracted to,
Yeah.
really super girls, and then you're 2, 3, whatever, and then I've had, last year, poof, they vanish like a
Yeah.
magician's trick.
Well, that is
Yeah.
the further you go in the process, the more the rejection stings.
And
'cause
that
the
bit
more
really stings.
the more it's personal to you, because you kind of let that's the armor down, and you're showing your kind of vulnerable self.
Yeah.
In the early days, we kind of almost have this sociopathic crocodilian skin. Go up to a girl,
Yeah.
nah, you just don't care. But yeah, when you're more emotionally invested because you've gone on maybe 3-4 days with her, yeah, I agree with you. It is more painful.
Yeah.
That is difficult.
It's hard not to take it personally because it is actually personal. They're
And
basically saying, right, I don't want
Yeah,
you
well, it
as
is,
a person.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you've grown to, you kind of grown to like them, and even after one date, that can be quite bad. If you go out on one date with her and you think, oh, she's sexy, she's attractive, we kind of get on, and then she doesn't want to progress it any further, that can sting as well. But
Yeah.
the thing is, if you are doing the model that we're doing, which is basically we are socializing all the time, we're meeting new people all the time, new women all the time, getting new contact details the whole time. So there's always these options on the table, if you like. Then you're going to open yourself up to more rejection than the average dude, because the average dude is basically sitting at home in Croydon with his proverbial dick in his hand.
Proverbial or actual
Well,
physical?
probably actual, and he's not, so, and this is why people who get into this stuff, they tend to suffer more rejections than the average guy, because the average guy, most people, I think, build their lives around trying not to be rejected in various ways. You don't put your head above the parapet.
Yeah.
And it's true in dating and also in other areas.
And of course, women have absolutely no idea that a man would rather take a bullet in Iraq than he would be turned down by a hot girl he's genuinely attracted to.
Yeah.
What's the antidote? I had an interesting experience today because I've been struggling with a super girl who just seemingly is vanished. You never know because these things can come around, can't they?
Yeah.
And I went to my tailor's as a very attractive girl there that I had a date with a year ago or something.
Yeah.
I went to my tailor's.
I love that. Just casually drop that. I was at my tailor's,
And it was just on, and I pulled her off. She actually sat on the. No.
She pulled you over.
Over the table. Tailor this!
This is a respectable establishment, it's a respectable town. Right. So no, she sat up on the. She fitted me for some shorts. She sat up on this big table she's got. It was nobody else in the shop. It was quite quiet. And I was just like, I was feeling grungy about this girl.
Yeah.
But I was very liberated with this girl.
Right.
And this was just today.
This was today.
What?
Yeah. And it's not much, just a little anecdote. But I did, I said, come here. So she jumped off the table and I took her hand and I kissed her. And she went, you kissed me like that? And I said, yeah.
And this was just in the shop.
This was in the shop.
That's amazing.
This was in the shop. Well, yeah, there's been some
Little bit of flirtation
over the years, but we haven't seen each other for a few months. But what was interesting was it felt like a little bit like the antidote to the snake bite.
Right.
I was then, that girl from last week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
And I hate to say it, it seems very sort of shallow of me to feel that way, but actually just having a lovely, fun, fizzy, flirtatious chat and a little kiss with my tailor was just magically healing, actually.
Yeah.
Really,
But I'd be very interested to hear what you guys.
Well, I think
how do you deal with rejection?
Well, I think linked into it is we talk about it a lot, but that difference between scarcity as a mindset,
Yes.
versus abundance.
Yes.
And that massively plays into
Yeah. It's interesting actually because Paul Janker, the early day game.
Because he's quite a famous dating coach.
Yeah, the early
He
dating
was.
coach.
I mean, he's now a world away, isn't he?
He's married and he's got a child and stuff. But he said something in one of his early books. Said something along the lines of, the great thing about being a man is that you can be brutally rejected 1 minute and then 20 minutes later you're getting intimate with a woman in a taxi cab on the way downtown. And that's absolutely true, isn't it? Because we know that from our own experience. What you're describing, one woman, maybe it's kind of not working out for whatever reason, but then you just go and see another woman and it's just completely different.
And who can blame a guy for wanting to get out of that painful place and go and date other girls?
Yeah.
And yet people might criticise him for being a player, for want of a better.
Is that a critical term, though?
I suppose it is.
Or is it a double standard, actually, where most women would say, actually, that's a pro kind of positive terminology, right? So the equivalent would be a loose woman, and that's negative, whereas a conversation of a player, a James Bond,
I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole, and forgive me for using that word, but you might say to yourself, come on, settle on one. Why are you jumping around?
Yeah.
And isn't that the conventional wisdom?
Yes. Yeah.
No, she's a nice girl. Ring her up and tell her how much you love her, and I'm sure she'll change her mind. And just be yourself.
Be yourself.
But this is why Rollo Tomasi will talk about spinning plates. Because it's often necessary for a guy to have various different options, very different irons in the fire. And it doesn't mean that you have to be sleeping with all of them necessarily, but just having that sense of abundance. Because otherwise, unfortunately, you always say it, the sexual marketplace is a pretty cruel mistress.
She's a cruel mistress.
She's a cruel mistress, and you do leave yourself open, unfortunately, to getting badly treated, don't you?
Yeah.
But I mean, let's be frank. I mean, women do this as well. Women will also have a range of different options in their phone, won't they? Particularly in the early stages of a relationship. She's chatting to several guys, so she's also got her backups, and I think it's guys kind of doing the same thing, isn't it?
Well, let's go a little bit further. I mean, could one argue, Mr. Tusk, that
Mr. Tusk.
Monsieur,
I put it to you, Mr. Tusk,
gentlemen, that actually
2 vodka shots. It's not bad our intro.
Przepraszam.
This is good. Can you speak Polish? Mass or mass?
Oczywiście.
Don't take that as a yes.
Dobry.
I think you could argue.
I'll get some vodkas in just. Yeah, no. Sorry. What I was going to just say is you could say that actually the woman is in charge of the sexual realm of mankind. She is actually making the decisions.
Oh yeah, women are the choosers.
And actually, what's a guy to do? He's got to kind of orbit in a classical, conventional Tolstoy War and Peace. Will you be my
milady?
lady?
Yeah.
You've got to kind of I don't know if that's always been the case for civilizations, but perhaps in modern Western society it has. So actually, perhaps what we're kind of defending our need to have abundance, dating abundance in our lives, but actually we should be saying more than that. It's absolutely essential and imperative of a self-respecting guy to be
100%.
dating a lot of girls.
I think it is. Yeah.
Because they're the ones who are deciding, and they're fishing you in, putting you through that pain process. Bless them. It's quite a good strategy. I mean, obviously,
but also,
and then they're throwing you back if they don't like the look.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be. I think if you do want to keep hold of that one girl, it's even more necessary for you to be out flirting with
That's
others.
a good question, isn't it?
No, you have to be out flirting with others. Yes, because it's we don't get this stuff naturally. You might get an unnatural guy, but really, what we're really talking about is social skills, aren't we? To a large degree, social intelligence, emotional intelligence, flirting skills. It's all a skill set you can learn, and if you switch off to that, you're going to be rusty coming back in. So women kind of naturally are just able to flirt, aren't they? They don't have to practice it. Men do. So if you basically hang up your proverbial social condoms for 3 years, and then your missus walks out, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're actually
I'm not in a
screwed.
good way. I'm not in a good way.
Even if you don't want to cheat, You should be, the world's most ethical fisherman. Get out on the street, catch and release. Practice those flirting skills. Practice interaction. Practice social freedom.
Because the truth is, if we're talking about sex, I mean, they say women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of relationships, and maybe that we can argue the point, but maybe there's some truth in that. But if we know that for women, particularly attractive women,
men, sorry to interrupt you, Troy, but because men decide to stay with the girl permanently, they're the gatekeepers of relationship.
Yeah.
Once you've given him sex.
Well, once you guys have had sex, then theoretically it's the guy then who says, right, actually,
the power ball,
but you could argue actually that maybe that's not the case, because there are so many men who are very thirsty, and they'll just, any girl who gives them the time of day, they'll seek to lock down. But so maybe that's not entirely true, but I forget my point now. But yeah, I mean, but the playing field isn't entirely level, because it's relatively easy for the majority of women to get sexual access of some kind.
Of a certain age, yeah.
I mean, it's not to say they're going to get their dream man, but most women, as we know, if she walked out to the high street and walked up to a couple of guys and said, "Will you have sex with me tonight?" Probably the likelihood is they're going to say yes. It's just not the same for the average guy.
Yeah.
Unless you reach that super level of the elite 0% man, and then all rules are out the window.
Unless you're elite, but assuming you're not elite, then the only other thing you can do to mitigate it slightly is to have a lot of options, and you build those options by being very social, and making lots of new contacts with lots of new women, and that's really what we teach. And it's not even necessarily saying that you have to sleep with all of them or anything like that. It's just
the confidence that comes with abundance.
Yeah, exactly.
The skills.
Abundance has a mentality, as a mindset. Yeah, just seeing the glass half full. I mean, purely looking at the numbers game element. There are 4 billion women.
Yeah.
You're never gonna. It's like the analogy of you go into an old school video game arcade and there's a broken coin slot, and I asked you, right, you get unlimited tries, you think you'll beat the game, and it's like, yeah, of course you would. You have unlimited shots at this. It's really ourselves which are the kind of limiting factor. When you have a factory setting on a car that limits the Porsche 911 speed. If you can take that off, i.e. basically become immune to rejection and just embrace it as it does not matter, and truly play the numbers game, you're never going to be without.
That's such a good point.
That being said, there are nuances though, because if you're a very quote unquote, and we're going to have to bring in some technical terminology, but if your sexual market value is pretty low, your magic number, i.e. the number to get one girl on a date could be like 1,000.
Yeah.
It takes you 1,000 approaches.
Basically, yeah. If you're not very attractive,
and so we're very lucky as men, because a number of these areas, in fact, pretty much everything apart from age, is something that can be looked at and worked on and improved.
Yeah.
And we're incredibly lucky in that respect, and it really comes down to laziness. So that's why we teach this kind of, you put it as lifestyle overall management. Social skills is one string of that bow, but what else are the other things we can max out? Fashion, fitness, finances, living an interesting life, learning multiple languages, having interesting hobbies.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're in danger of just having skills to get a girl on a date.
When they see straight through you, because they jump into your reality, right? Yeah. So if your reality sucks balls, and you don't enjoy it, she's not going to enjoy it by extension. You have to be living a boss life. If you take women out of it, live that boss life, and then you can add women as the cherry on the top. But a lot of guys come into this and are like, I just want to Tusk and Troy, I just want to solve the girl problem. I'm just going to charge her until I get the girl. They're missing the point. I'm like, right, so what do you do 9 to 5? And they're doing a job 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 30 years that they absolutely despise. That's going to have a mental toll on you.
Because,
they're not in shape, their fashion sucks, they don't have any hobbies outside of it. You need these bits, that's the piece of the puzzle. And then the social skills, the game, that's also a piece of the puzzle, right? And most guys don't focus on the whole package. You need to focus on the whole package.
I mean, you could argue that the old school, the first generation of dating coaches maybe neglected that a bit.
No, they 100% did, because it was supposed to be smoke and mirrors. Let's fake being alpha. Let's do these party tricks to fake our value. They didn't actually want to build that value, right?
Just to give some sort of history on this, I mean, when did, because isn't this the first time in modern history that guys have actually, I think perhaps as early as '67 there was a book that came out about seduction. and
67,
dating skills.
really?
Yeah. But then you have people in the 70s and 80s and whose names we're probably familiar with. Who-
David D'Angelo and these
who then were doing exactly what David D'Angelo's and so on, prescribing a set of social equipment, even some lines,
yes,
although none of it comes with a good line, but as though that was to fix it.
yeah.
I guess, so it was 100%. Was it 100%? What has the sort of the area of dating, coaching and dating advice been coloured, contaminated even by the idea that get your box of skills, do a conference, go out and get sex?
Yeah, I mean, I think that tends to be the marketing, because it's an easy sell, isn't it? Like, come on our boot camp, it will solve all problems. But we know that's not the case. If the thing is, we tend to put out content where we might be sitting in a nice hotel, because that's how we travel. It might be a nice four-star hotel in Helsinki. It's a nice ambience. We're dressed quite well. That's going to actually attract a certain type of client who, ironically, actually has his shit together in a number of other areas, and because of that, he then does quite well with this, because he's already got his ducks in a row elsewhere, and he's just lacking that ability, that technical kind of action to go and actually, all right, how do I actually go and speak to that kid guy in the coffee shop? And that's where that kind of guy excels very quickly. Whereas it's the guys who come in with no real value who are going to have a tough time. Now, they're still going to level up to some degree, because sitting in your mother's basement to actually getting outside, walking on the street, and then talking to some human beings is actually going to give you massive differential anyway. But it's all relative, depending on the guy in question. There's no doubt that that's.
But I think you've described it quite well, because you've got the young guys who just want to go out and stir their wild oats and have crazy adventures, and perhaps that's what the pickup industry was targeted at.
It probably was, to be fair, because it was obviously a bunch of very young guys, or guys in their early 20s, talking to other guys in their early 20s, probably at the time that we started to become aware of this space. But even then, it's never really been the full picture that you can just learn, these 6 techniques or these 6 lines, and you're going to mysteriously get any woman into bed. And I think you're right; it's an easy sell. But the reality is, the more value that you can bring to the party outside of that, the better you're going to do. I think that's. Yeah, and people just, we've just got to be honest about that, I think, really.
And we'd argue that look, status and money are actually probably more important than game.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you?
I wouldn't say in that proportion. I'd say status and money.
Well, to put it another way, if you have a guy who's incredibly high status and he walks in, he is going to suck up all the attention in the room. So now, obviously, the reality is that most of us don't have the Leonardo DiCaprio style status.
We're talking about the top 1.
So then you've got to think, okay, so what does the average guy do? And obviously then game and verbal game, it does make a difference. But in the end, if you really think about it, status ultimately would trump everything.
It does.
And so
that's
therefore,
kind of the ace in the pack, isn't
yeah,
it?
and so therefore,
you're talking about a celebrity level stage.
We're talking, or even kind of, I know a guy that went on Love Island, which is a kind of I guess it's quite a big viewing in the UK, but in the grand scale of things, you're a bit of a kind of flash in the pan. And I remember him showing me his Instagram, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And the guy has absolutely no game. Like, he's quite jacked. He's a good-looking guy, but he's been on a program, and it's literally 15 minutes of fame. It's like, my good God, like the stuff he's getting, but the options he now has.
Yes. So I guess there's a very small percentage of the population who are lucky enough or blessed enough or not work hard enough that they get into a very high status stratosphere.
Basically, we're talking about fame as basically that's kind of the outlier. So
that's a trump card that most guys aren't able to play. But outside that stratosphere,
well, you say that, and
yes. Well, no, it was just clarifying the question. It was like, it's not about. The way I heard what you said was it's not about skills and mastery and flirting dating skills, approach skills. It's about status.
Within that small niche of like guys that are like quite, say nationally famous, is status will really trump everything.
Well,
Guys shouldn't be disheartened if they're not. I would believe.
Well, no,
Guys shouldn't be disheartened if they're not.
no, absolutely not, because we're not playing a zero-sum game, and that's the beautiful thing. Is you don't have to be. And we always talk about this, but you don't have to be DiCaprio. It's a lot of people think, right, you're either DiCaprio or you're not getting laid, and there's obviously billions of shades of grey in between that.
I think the bottom line is, though, you want to be looking to max out your status and the way that you look and the way that you present yourself, along with learning the game stuff. But I mean, you're talking about this top 0.01% status, but even like say about a man like yourself, I mean, you've obviously professional background, successful professional guy, so you learned day game, and that massively, daytime approach, that massively improved your results in dating. But do you think that part of that was the fact that also as part of the package was the fact that you are this?
I just don't. I feel that the evidence is there, Your Honour. I spent 20 odd, 15, 20 years
of nothing.
20. Yeah. And I had lots of friends. I had status. Yeah, I had an established career. I was reasonably well off. I had a very nice flat in London for a while. That's the whole point. I thought that you get, you'd work hard. You're great at social friends. You're nice to women.
The field of dreams. Build it and they'll come.
Yeah, and you build it and they'll come. And you think, God, I'm a first-class degree, bar school, all the rest of that nonsense. And I'm like, nobody told me there's a better way of getting into bed with beautiful women.
Yeah,
so for me, it was massively, not celebrity status, it was a massive epiphany that I might just not have social skills, dating skills, that you kind of need, mate.
No, you really do.
Over the wire with these girls who love being your friends.
I agree.
No, you really do. But is it though the two things in tandem? Is it the social skills 100% you need, and this is why people do need to, unless you're Leonardo DiCaprio, people do need to learn that.
Social skills. I mean,
but would you still be doing better? Would you, as an overall?
Get me started, because I'll get evangelical.
As an overall package though, are you still doing better than if you were living in a skip, and you had the social skills?
I don't think so.
See, that's an interesting point.
Depends how the skip is decorated.
Yeah.
But if it's a bottle of vodka and
But this was my issue with it's a slightly different point, but this was my issue with the old school game guys, is then basically saying, "God, game solves all problems." I disagree. There's talk of like money being a demonstration of lower value. It's absolute fucking nonsense.
Well,
because money will get you access, but money buys you time to work on whatever you want, i.e. improve your value, and money buys you access to places. You can walk into a VIP of a club, have pretty, been in hung out with some very wealthy guys. Their game sucks, but they have access, right? So in the night game environment, they are sitting at the owner's table with hot women. By association, they're going to get laid. So status and money do play, when you know how to use it, they play a massive role. Now, if you're a complete schmuck and you're massively blue-pilled, very needy, money may work against you. But when you understand this, money will just, a bit like leveraging Bitcoin. Money and status will leverage whatever you have.
I mean, you can be unhappy, rich, unhappy, poor. You're still unhappy, but you probably take the rich rather than being the poor, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's a fluid form of power. Money, it buys you freedom of time, which arguably, actually, freedom of time and attention are the most important thing in life.
Tell you what, James, you can own a Ferrari, but if you don't know how to drive it.
Yeah.
I agree, but you still prefer to have the money. What I'm saying is money will buy you time.
At least you've got the Ferrari.
Money will buy you time to work on this stuff, right? Whereas if you're a wage slave working McDonald's 12 hours a day, you can be you don't have the time to go and work on these skills, right? You need to be out actually interacting with people, money buys you freedom of your own time.
Maybe there's two slightly different points here, though, because maybe what we're saying is in a wider holistic sense, you know, that lifestyle-wise, it's better to be maxing out the other things as well. But it sounds like what Alex is. Are you more in the position of saying, really, game is not the cure-all, but social skills, in the absence of anything else, social skills would get you where you want to be in terms of dating, even if the rest of your life is, you know, you maybe you're not in great shape, you don't have much of a career.
I do, and I think the reason is because, you know, the limited knowledge I've acquired of women and attractive women it astounds me on a weekly basis, because I get older, uglier, and fatter, and they have no idea I'm a lawyer, and I'm in a t-shirt speaking. You know,
yeah. So you go out. Yeah, that's interesting. So you go out dressed down a bit, because I always imagine you kind of day gaming, and I always imagine Mr.
I used to, you know, run around the streets and go out and approach girls like a guy goes out at night.
Yeah.
Now I live in the centre. I walk to work. Now that I've got some, you know, grasp of the basics, so I go into to work, and yeah, and I'm in a coffee shop and into tailors.
Yeah.
And you know, the world is your oyster when you live in the centre. So I'm very lucky in that regard. And girls are just, I think, I'm not sure, they want a lot of girls who've got independent spirits or run their own businesses. I think they want a guy to be a strong, you know,
masculine friend.
Masculine friend,
I
but not
would
necessarily real quality girls. Probably, I don't think they'd care much if he was super rich or Riley wasn't a loser in debt. So I think that one can, so I think my answer would be, from my experience, I'm simply astonished at how more and more I'm learning that they're not looking for things that I've always thought they were looking for.
But do you think, though, I mean, there's a couple of points, but for a start, do you think you get a better reaction dressed in a t-shirt and shorts if you're day gaming than in a suit? Because I know from experience, charging around my early days, Canary Wharf in a suit, the best reactions I've ever had have been when I've been quite dressed up. It just there's this myth as well where it's very kind of black and white, like, oh, if you're not wearing the leather jacket on the motorbike, you're beta. You know, you're wearing a suit, that's beta. It's not true. You don't get, again, okay, I'm using famous guys as examples, but you get a DiCaprio, you get a Jordan Belfort, they're not beta in a suit. And I would argue that women have a keen eye for fashion, and they actually would prefer a well-dressed guy.
I would say that absolutely, go out, get a suit, get some fashion together, get sorted. But then that takes you to a
Time.
time.